Good morning, dear respected Thai, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear noble community. And this morning we have a session of question and answer. It is also the last session of question and answer of this retreat. And this morning we have a panel of Dharma teachers that include both monastic and lay that are with us. So this is a very precious opportunity. And the practice of question and answer is to ask a question from the heart. A question that concerns our practice, a question that concerns our happiness, our joy, our suffering in our daily life. And with the experience from our brothers and sisters on this panel, we will share with you our experience that we have with the practice in our daily life. And a good question doesn't have to be very long. And a good question can not only benefit for ourselves, but benefit for the many friends who are here. And I know that in our community, especially in this special retreat, we have many OI Sanghas that are here. So we may also have some questions concerning the happiness and joy of community building. This can also be a time to explore that if there is something that is in our heart that we need support in, we can also use this opportunity. So for any of us who have a question, you're invited to come up and sit on the chair and join us up here. It's a very beautiful view of the community. And enjoy breathing and then enjoy to ask the question and then to open our hearts to receive the answers from our brothers or sister. Yeah. So if any of us, we have a question, you're invited to come up. And dear friends, let us listen to this 3 sound of the bell before we start our session of question and answer. Dear respected Thai, dear noble community, today is June the 20th in the year 2018, and we are in our 21-day retreat. We are in the Dharma Cloud Temple of Plum Village, and this is our first question.
Dear respected Thai, dear respected Sangha friends, dear respected teachers, good morning. My question was aroused partly by the wonderful Dharma talk by, correct me if I'm wrong, Sister Annabelle about the 12 nidanas. Yes? She gave a wonderful description of how different causes and conditions affect our practice and our daily life. She also touched upon the unconditioned. And my question relates to the unconditioned. As it relates to our practice and to our daily life, my question is, what is the unconditioned? And how do we go there during our practice, during our daily life, so that we can manifest from that place for the benefit of all beings? Thank you.
So, Thai, dear Sangha, dear friends, thank you for these difficult questions. If I'm not complete, so maybe Sister Annabelle could help. Well, it's about how to touch the unconditioned in our daily practice, right? If I understand well.
And in our daily life, too.
Mm-hmm. So it's come to me two things, very practical. Like if we in Plum village, we have the practice when you are angry with somebody. And so we just breathe and envision in 300 years what we will become ourselves, who are angry with that person, and how will that person become. You see? So what would we become?
Nothing.
Dust? Maybe dust, some white dust from our bones.
Yes.
You see? So we are angry in the historical dimension, I mean in the relative dimension. But if we can come back and practice this deep looking, we start to touch the ultimate dimension. You see?
A little.
Because in the ultimate, from dust we will become dust, and there's no self who is angry, actually. Because with time, with impermanence, then we will become dust, both of the one who is angry and the one whom we are angry with, for example. You see? So that we start to touch a little bit this unconditioned. You see? And there's another practice also that we use to propose to our friends is to touch our ancestors in each step. If we really focus in each step we are making in the walking meditation, and we can feel that we are walking for our parents, for example, or our grandpa, who may be passed away already, for example, and with a lot of concentration, we can embody our grandpa and our ancestors, for example, in each step we are making. So we are walking in the relative, the historical dimension, but if which step I say, okay, I walk for you, grandpa, and we can feel that our grandpa are walking with us, then we are touching the ultimate dimension. That means the unconditioned. That means that we are conditioned by our ancestors and several generations more and more, and quite infinite. So that's become from the condition, we become the unconditioned. So the question is, do we have enough mindfulness and concentration to really embody that. That means that we are breathing with all our cells, not only with this small body, with the whole cell. And in each of our cells, there is the genes, the genetic transmission. So that means that we are reviving, we can say that, bring back to life all our ancestors through our gene. And that means that through also this body memory, the body memory, so that could be understood from the gene transmission. You see, like if our ancestors are depressed, or there's some suffering in our ancestors, then that could be transmitted through generation. But the suffering are a kind of energy, suffering and other habits, like anger or things like that, the habit to be angry, for example. They are energy, but those energy could be transmitted also through the gene. And now science start to see that through what we call the epigenetic. This is the environment, the energetic environment of the gene that make that the gene, one gene will express itself or not. You see? So that means that we can, if we can experience and feel this body and cell, and more than smaller than cell, the gene, and then that's why we say that we sit there and we sit practicing meditation not only for ourselves but also for our ancestors. And if we can really feel that, and there's practitioner who can feel that, you can sit and you can feel the suffering of, like my grandma. Sometimes I can feel that. Even if I didn't know her, but I know that from the inquiring the story, that my grandma from the side of my father, by her time, she was beaten by my grandpa, and so I know that she must suffer a lot, but so. When I sit or when I walk, sometimes I invite her to walk with me, and I'm very happy when I can do that. So those small practice with a lot of concentration, then we can experience, touch a little bit this ultimate dimension. So I hope that could. Thank you,
brother. The story you told just now is true. Exactly, in my family. My father's mother was beaten by my grandfather. So you touched me very directly with that. And thank you very much for that explanation. That does help.
Good luck. Thank you.
Dear Thai, dear respected Sangha, my question is, I'm an American, but I've lived in Asia all of my adult life. I went to Asia when I was 18, and I've been studying Buddhism for about 25 years. before coming to Plum about 7 years ago. And living in Asia, I've lived and worked in numerous Buddhist countries. And when you're in a Buddhist country, let's say Thailand or Sri Lanka, you can feel Buddhism flow through the society from a company director to a grocery store clerk to a taxi driver. So you have this sense of Buddhism, not perfection, but a Buddhist nature within the society. Now, in the West and in the East, referring to America, referring to Europe, even referring to Western-orientated societies in the Asia. I live in the Philippines, which has had a Spanish background, an American background, a colonial background. Buddhism there, from my observation, is often perceived as a very intellectual art. So the people that come to days of mindfulness or other Buddhist practices tend to be from the upper class, because Buddhism is perceived to be very intellectual practice. What are we doing? What can we do within our Plum Village practice, within our sanghas? Example, in the Philippines, I would love to see the taxi driver, the government official, the man or woman on the street come to days of mindfulness. But in reality, it's more the foreigners or more the elite. And I think that would hold true even in the US, even in Europe. So I know that we don't want that. It's not our desire to appeal to a certain class, but yet we're perceived that way. So how can Buddhism address that so that we're not perceived as, you know, an elitist practice, or you have to be very bright to be a Buddhist? So I'd just like some thoughts on that. Thank you very much.
Dear respected Thai, dear community, dear friend, thank you for your question. One of our teacher's deepest aspiration is to renew Buddhism. That has been his work at a very young age as a monk when he started in Vietnam. He also saw that the Buddhism that was being offered wasn't the Buddhism that was entering into the stream of everyday life. Just like you shared, because there is a perception of how Buddhism is being presented. So I actually see that this community sitting right here in this meditation hall is one of his answers, is to bring the teaching Dharma, the intellectual Dharma, into the everyday life. And that is why our path in Plum Village is the engaged Buddhism, or the applied Buddhism. Everything that we learn from the monks, the nuns, the lay Dharma teacher, the scriptures, we always have to have a question: how do I put this into my daily life? I came to Plum Village at a very young age. At 9 was my first time here. I'm not the upper class. I was just in elementary school, but I touched something very deep when I came. And what I touched was the simplicity of joy and happiness that is very alive in this place. And this is the living Dharma. This is the living Buddhism. This question is not only a question that you have, it is also a question that us monastics in the monastic community, we are exploring and we are answering every day with our life. When Thai was exiled from Vietnam, and he found out that he had to continue his community building, and that had to take place in the West. This was a new condition, and this was an opportunity to bring Buddhism to the West. And it was a new start. It was in a foreign place where Buddhism doesn't have a very strong culture yet. So it opened a new door which allowed Thai to explore and create what we have today. If you come from a traditional Buddhist culture, you may find and see that there is a lot of things that are quite renewed in the practice of Plum Village, and all of the things that we are exploring, we are teaching, as well as we are setting up in our Sangha, is to bring Buddhism back into society. Right now, we may see that Plum Village is a spiritual home, and on the 22nd, when we leave Plum Village, we are going back into the world. I always hear, oh, in Plum Village it's so great, but in the world it's like this, like that. Our path is to make that outside in the world, spiritual practice will continue. And one thing that we have witnessed and we have seen, either Buddhism, Christianity, or any other religion, every human on this planet have a seed that is common in all of us, and that is the seed of spirituality. And the seed of spirituality is the seed that brings us back to this present moment for us to explore and get to know ourselves more. And if we study the other practices, we also see that some of the core teachings is to help us come back to touch the nature of well-being inside of us. And in the Buddha's teaching, there is practices and dhamma doors that are very concrete that we explore in our tradition. In my vision, I share with you, in Plum Village's vision, in 50 years, 100 years from now, when a monk or nun walk on the street in society, it will not be something weird. At the moment, whenever we walk in the street, everybody look at us. What are they? What is this? The kids come up to ask us, are you Jedis? Because of our robes. So we are not fitted in the norm yet. But slowly and slowly, I truly believe that spirituality is reawakening again because of the suffering, the discrimination, the war, the difficulty that is manifesting everywhere in the world, whether it's a first world country or a third world country. Suffering is universal. Therefore, spirituality is universal. And I can share with confidence that the practice is something that everybody is very thirsty for now. A practice to find stability and freshness in our daily life, to be able to relate to one another on the level of compassion, of love, and openness. This is the first time in Plum Village history. This year we opened the summer retreat in April. And within 4 hours, the children program of Plum Village was fully booked out. And now we are dealing with a lot of emails asking to come, but we are saying we are very sorry. We are fully booked, and this is the truth. We have our limits and we have our capacity, but this is to showing that the spiritual practice of Buddhism or of Plum Village Buddhism is coming more into the stream of everyday life. I have been very lucky to have a chance to be Thai's attendant for a very long time. And one time I had a chance to witness one Western monk ask Thai, how long do you think it would take for Buddhism to take root in the West? And Thai said, at least 100 years or more. And the monk was shocked. He was, but Plum Village is here. Why does it take so long? Because it has to happen organically. Spirituality is a path that everybody has to come and see for themselves. We cannot enforce it on other people, but we can create conditions. Each and every one of us who is here, we all have our different conditions which brought us to the spiritual path. And I think that in today's day, with everything being open through internet, social media, there is more access to exploring. So, for example, most recently, last year, the documentary on Plum Village, Walk With Me, was created and was brought out to the public. And the intention of the film is for people who have never been to Plum Village, who has no idea what we are, to see and to experience a little bit of a taste of mindfulness. So that film, if you have watched it, it doesn't give you many answers, but it may spark a lot of questions. And that is the intention of the film, to create conditions for people to explore a spiritual path. So if you are a true practitioner and you see that this is a part, that the practice will become a part of your life, your everyday life will become a condition for the spirituality to become more a part of society. So what Plum Village is doing, what this monastery is doing, is opening doors in one angle, but all of our lay Dharma teachers, all of our lay friends, all of you who come and want to continue this practice is also bringing spirituality with a new filter into the world. And as Thai's continuation, we have to continue to renew Buddhism. And one time Thai told me his whole life is to make Buddhism more simple. And he said, it is so difficult because simplicity doesn't seem abstract. Because when you hear spirituality, you think of something very high, enlightenment, levitating, right? But here we're saying, come back to earth, come back to Mother Earth, come back to your breath. So the practice that we are doing is to make Buddhism more simple and more accessible. And because it is more accessible, then all walks of life will feel connected. If it's the real practice of Buddhism, it doesn't discriminate. Because the Buddha came from also a society of a lot of discrimination. From the Brahmas, to the royalties, to the untouchables. And when the Buddha created his community, the first thing that the Buddha did was break all of those barriers. Anybody can be a monastic, whether from whatever rank you are in society. And that was maybe the first religion in India that accepted the untouchable into the spiritual practice. So if we are practicing the real Dharma and we carry the real true transmission of the Buddha, then it is a practice of non-discrimination and a practice of openness. So this is something that we have to remind ourselves, even as Dharma teachers, as teachers. It's very nice to feel empowered by teaching the Dharma. So, and we have to remind ourselves, how are we teaching the Dharma? Are we making the Dharma too high, like your question? Are we making it too fancy? But at the same time, Mahayana Buddhism is also the Buddhism of skillfulness. So wherever part of society we go, we have to use the language. That is something that we have to be very skillful of. For example, when our teacher went to Google to give the Dharma talk, Thai had to study about the life of IT, of people who work in Google, because you have to use the language that connects to the people. So whatever situation we are in, we have to be able to adapt. So that is the tricky part, but that is what Buddhism offers, the openness. So if you stick with us and stick with Buddhism for the long time, I believe that this will become, the spiritual community will once again become a part of society. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I'm not going anywhere, don't worry. I'm here with you. I just share briefly, in the Philippines, where we have no monastics, we just had 5 Dharma teachers, nuns from Thailand Center come and orientate for 3 months in a mountain town in the Philippines. And it's the first time that Buddhist nuns were seen, and it was wonderful. But everyone came up to them and said, because Philippines is 90% Catholic, they said, "Sister, what order are you from? I haven't seen those robes before." Thank you, brother.
Cher Thai, cher Sangha, c'est du français. Je m'excuse pour... Je ne suis pas passé devant là, parce que tout à l'heure je m'étais levé tout de suite derrière la première personne qui s'était levée. Je n'ai pas du tout l'impression d'être un voleur.
Okay, Pascal asked pardon that he didn't mean to shortcut the queue. That's fine. Okay.
De ce côté. Ok. Merci. Je voudrais poser une question sur les outils de la pratique dont parle et que Thai écrit sur samatha et vipassana. Et moi, j'ai compris que samatha, c'est la recherche de la paix mentale en arrêtant les pensées. Et j'ai compris que vipassana, c'est l'investigation pour aller analyser des souffrances qu'on peut avoir et qu'on peut découvrir quand on est vraiment dans la paix, et des souffrances qui remontent de l'alaya ou de la conscience du tréfonds. Donc j'aimerais bien avoir vos explications techniques sur les définitions de samatha et vipassana.
Okay, our friend is asking about the Dharma tools, the tools of the practice, like samatha and vipassana, as he understands what Thai teaches. Is that samatha is first to calm down and to peace the mind, and vipassana is to investigate the roots of our sufferings or things like that, the causes of our suffering. So he would like to have more light about that. Thank you.
So good morning, dear Thầy, dear Sangha, dear friend. For what we receive from Thay's teachings about the two aspects of meditation, the concentration and the looking deeply. And to make it easy, the concentration is we need to stay with the objects long enough for the insight to happen. So it's as simple as that. And usually on our silent sitting meditation, or sometimes we are guided with sitting meditation, and we have different objects about looking deeply. And some of the objects are quite simple. Saying that if we contemplate about a flower and we feel fresh, it is very simple exercise that we use to enhance our freshness whenever we don't feel fresh. So this is very simple object that we can imagine. We can bring into mind the flower, and we can see the quality of the flower, and we also feel in line with the freshness of the flower. But that is just one example. But some of the objects that we choose to look deeply is quite complicated. Saying that the contemplation about the independent co-arising, this is very, very difficult subject. Contemplation on a difficult relationship is also needs a lot of time and a lot of concentration. Contemplating about a difficult emotion is also very, very needs a lot of attention. So it depends on what objects of our concentration that we need to stay long enough for the insight to happen. With the subjects of independent co-arising, for example, sometimes our Dharma teachers, our brothers and sisters, need to inquire, meditate for years, or study to have more insight in order to offer the teachings to the Sangha. So we have a lot of gratitude to our Dharma teachers to offer that subject and insight to the Sangha. And it comes to our individual level. The objects of our concentration could be the one that we choose to meditate on, and around that subjects, there's requires a lot of attention, inquiring, intentional sitting meditation, and also many other conditions around that subject in order to penetrate into a deep insight to find a way out. So it depends on what subject that you are looking deeply. And usually, just like we are cooking a potato, and when we cook a potato, if the potato is uncooked, it's not very delicious to eat, because that we cannot arrive at the right amount of cooking and for the taste to be happened or to be available. So we can identify clearly the object of our concentration, and we find enough conditions around that for that practice to happen. If we have difficult relationship with someone, for example, and there's a lot of suffering around that person, around the things related to that person. We can do a lot of sitting meditation, and we can look deeply into the relationship which brings about what we call the suffering, or we like to have the way out. And for 1 or 2 sessions of sitting meditation may be not enough for us to penetrate deep down into the insight that will liberate us or will give us a lot of desired results. So we need a lot of intention. We need a lot of courage to really to sit down and sit still enough. And the more stillness, the more concentrated that we are on that subject, the more the subject, the objects to be looked deeply and the potato to be cooked. So concentration is quite needed, and that is quite simple. And we use mindfulness as the energy of concentration. By means of deep looking, breathing, and stay with the objects long enough so that we can seize many facets of the things around the object that we want to look deeply, and we will find many things around that object that may be the causes about suffering, and we like to see the way out. And the way out or the insight will happen as long as we are still enough. And usually we don't use our thinking, our intellectual to inquire or to look deeply or to find a way by our intellect. Just like a camera, when you aim at something and you aim it, and your camera is still enough or clear enough, the object will be seen very clearly. And if we are walking or running and we take the picture at the same time, the picture is not as good because the amount of concentration and stillness is not enough for the objects to be seen clearly. So meditation is not about thinking or about inquiring, so that we can think and we can analyze, we can make the calculation if this has happened and that will happen. So we cannot do these things like that. The more we use our intellect, the more our mind is cloudy, and the picture, the vision about the insight, the sight from within will not be very clear. So we can do the reverse. It depends on the objects of our sitting meditation. We can identify that clearly. That is the person, or that is the relationship, or that is the academic problems, or that is my physical health. Anything related to the object that we need to look deeply, and we know that we have to stay with that long enough for the vision to be clear, to show us the way. To show us the way out, and it will come naturally by itself. The insight is not something that's conditioned by thinking the causes that come together and the result will happen. It's not the products of the intellect mind. The insight is the fruit of our looking deeply and clear visions, clear seeing. And we will see around that objects, and we will see the way out. Thank you very much.
Oui, enfin, moi je pense qu'analyser une souffrance, si on ne l'analyse pas, elle va rester, on ne trouvera pas les causes de quelqu'un qui va nous donner une souffrance, et comprendre comment le cheminement de la souffrance s'est transporté d'un être, d'une personne à une autre personne, et pour arrêter le cheminement karmique, si on fait que contempler, enfin, pour moi le mot contempler, il définit pas le travail, quoi, de compréhension. Au État, il dit qu'il faut comprendre pour aimer. et pour guérir. Donc, voilà.
Très bien, merci Pascal. So, c'est bon. We just said that we need to analyze because you need understanding. Yeah. So, sure, we will, tu as très bien compris. Merci.
Dear respected Thai, dear teachers, dear beautiful community. Oh, my heart is beating. I don't have clearly formulated question yet, but I'll try. Over 10 years ago, I had a pretty severe climbing accident with pretty bad neck injury and head injury, and I didn't get much help right away. And I didn't want to stop doing what I was doing because of the strong habitual energy. So I re-injured myself many, many times. And as a result, I often have severe pain in my neck. I can see the goodness of the pain or in the injury because it's really truly forced me to, especially when I shortly after discovered this practice and met Thai. And there are times that I'll just lie and breathe. And sometimes the pain will go away, sometimes it doesn't. And again, because often I feel desperate, I'm not afraid to try to go deeper and deeper what is happening or what sufferings or the roots they are. And talking about the ultimate dimension, I'm from Poland, so when at the beginning especially, when I would go to a deep meditation, I would feel or see thousands of my ancestors dying in concentration camps or whatnot, and be able to hold and breathe with them. And recently had another experience that in deep meditation I was aware of absolutely every cell of my body, and sending compassion and love, and then aware of the billions of people that probably suffering on one level or the other like me, and being able to hold them in my palms. And then the consciousness just went into cosmos in a way, and I was back into myself. And after that experience, I said, great, my pain will be healed. But it's almost intensified, and I don't get it. I don't know how to practice with the pain. Last night I had a pretty bad night that I prayed, I meditated, I prayed, and at some point I just don't want it. I want it to go away. And so I'm maybe asking more for clarity or how to practice maybe differently, that it's not so painful. Thank you.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, So there are a number of questions packed in there. So let me begin back with Paul's question just about the unconditioned, which I'll get to it, where that for me, this word, the unconditioned, is like a word trap or a snake. If we take it to mean a dualistic, there's the conditioned and the unconditioned, we sort of go around in our heads. But if we see it as pointing to something beyond conditioned and unconditioned, beyond birth and death, coming and going, a way of being in the world, of being part of life, and it's a direction. Tai often said about the 5 mindfulness trainings that it wasn't something you were going to achieve. It was like the North Star, and you moved along there. And so Paul's question, I think, was the heart of this practice of how do we move along to this place where we see things differently. One little opening for myself happened years ago here at the Upper Hamlet, where I got this realization that I was my father's son. I mean, it sounds simple, but it was this, I had an idea of myself as being separate from my parents. And it just this moment of realizing, no, that's not the way life is. Okay. So that's just about how we're all going in this direction of step by step opening up to a larger vision of what life is beyond a separate self, beyond a separate self-entity. So first, sympathy for, it was rock climbing that did it, and just a lot of sympathy that that's too bad. And I have a little experience with pain and back pain and old age, and they're not comfortable. And so, as you were saying, what is the lesson here? Or how do you use it? I mean, I'm assuming you've gone to doctors and have a diagnosis, and whatever they can do has been done, right? So it becomes, the Buddha taught about the 2 arrows, that we have a physical pain, or we have a loss in our life, we've lost a loved one, and those hurt, and there's pain. And then there's the second arrow, which is how we respond to it. Oh, poor me, I'm a victim, everybody else gets to jump, I can't jump anymore. And so we keep adding to that pain, right? Why does this have to happen to me? Here I am at Plum Village, I want to do this, I have to lie in bed, I'm not getting enough sleep. Sound familiar? So how do we cut through that and just, as you were doing, just come back to the breath, come back to, if you can, just noticing, being with the pain. Is it rising? Is it falling? Is it better now? Are there, what are the roots? I mean, what did you do that day or the day before that added to it? Did you sit 6 hours in the meditation hall in one position? And does that increase the pain? Is it easier if you stand up? And so you get to know the roots of it and get a little smarter so that you don't keep doing the things that make it worse, even though you want to, they're attractive, right? When Tai teaches about dealing with difficult emotions, dealing with pain, that he teaches about, so there's a mnemonic device I use called Ra, Eli. Ra is the Egyptian sun god, Eli is the Hebrew prophet. So it's recognize, meaning, yes, I have this pain, accept it. This is what I've got now. This is real. I Don't deny it, okay? It doesn't mean you like it or you condone it, but it's real. But the third one is wonderful. It's E for embrace. I mean, rather than analytic and push away. Hello, anger, my dear friend. Hello, pain, my dear friend. I mean, that since it's there and it's part of your world, rather than being angry at it, can you develop a loving relationship with it? So that's the E. The L is looking deeply. So sort of understanding, oh, this is interesting. So what other pains do you have in your life? Is this pain connected to other pains? And just to ask yourself that question. I mean, when does it arise? What's it related to? Does this have to do, with being hurt as a child or being abandoned? Or is there some other part of the seed that's screaming through this pain, as it were? So there's a looking deeply. And then insight, of just understanding it a little bit more deeply. That where this pain came from, all the different roots. Oh, and you mentioned part of this pain is your unwillingness to slow down and rock climb less often or in a different way, right? I know you don't do it anymore, but you did it enough to really hurt yourself. So, how are there other things you're doing that same pattern in? Are there other parts of your life that you're pushing too hard? And this is just what looking deeply in insight is about, is from within to explore it and let your body and your spirit and your intuition guide you. And this is not something that, again, are likely to fix in a day or a week, but it's a direction. So many of us have, we may not have your physical pain, but we may have sadness, fear, anxiety, jealousy, lack of self-worth. And so we're all working on something. You got pain when we dealt out the cards. Somebody else got fear. Somebody else got lack of self-worth. I hope that helps a little. Thank you.
Dear Thai, dear teachers, dear Sangha, my question is about faith and doubt on my path. I find in my body the habit energy of comparing myself to other people and setting expectations for my future about things I will achieve or I will have. And of course, there are so many things out of my control in my environment that create conditions where some of those things may not arise when I have planned. So my question is, how do I trust in my path? And how can I let go of the things that I cannot control?
Dear Thai, dear beloved community, dear friend, thank you for your question. You talked about faith, and And in the teachings, we talk about faith being really our confidence in the practice to help us overcome suffering. And of course, part of our suffering is caused by what we want to attach to. Attached to our ideas of happiness being in the future when we can achieve certain things. And so that's why the practice of being present is so precious, to come back to ourselves, to be fully present, and to let go of the running to a future that appears better than now. Because when we can truly appreciate what we have now, our health, our strength, beautiful conditions within this community, we are already creating our future. We're already creating a happy future. Because if we learn how to be happy here and now, then whatever we can have in the future, we can be happy with that. I'll maybe tell you a little story about my own practice. I have 2 children, and when they were quite young, I went out to work, and my husband stayed at home looking after the family. And I really valued the weekends when I would be with the children. And one Saturday, I was walking with my children, holding their little hands. They were about 2 and 4 years old. But I realized I wasn't actually with my children. My mind was somewhere else. It was moaning about things that my husband hadn't done that I thought he should have done. And I kind of, that woke me up, realizing that I wasn't there where I wanted to be with my children. My mind was thinking about how I wanted things to be in the house and how I wanted things to be different than they were. And so that really brought me back to what was my intention. And my intention was to be present with my children at that time. And I realized that I had a strong seed of things wanting to be the way I wanted them to be around the home, and that was something that I could take care of with my practice. And that was something I had to take care of for many years. And I also can see how I have a big habit energy of achievement. A big habit energy of achievement. I told a story in Lower Hamlet about when I was a child. I'd go home with my exam results to my dad at 11 and said, "Dad, I've done pretty good. I got 94% in my history exam and 97% in my maths exam." And he just said to me, "Well, where were the other percentages, Vari?" and turned away. And he always said that, all the years after that. And of course, that was his way of motivating me to achieve. But it made me feel that I had to keep trying more and more. So it's very good to realize that. And when I came across this practice, I had a very good job in a big company. And I realized over time that I wanted to offer more to the community. And so I left that job and did different things so that I would have more time to practice, more time to offer to the Sangha. And I feel much more happy doing that than having a big job and more money. So just hope some of those examples from my practice might be helpful to you thinking about maybe looking after your habit energy of wanting to run to the future, of thinking about what you need to achieve, and just being able to recognize that, to look after those feelings, and to come back to being present, recognizing all the wonderful things that are here and now for you to enjoy, and to then trust in the practice that the future will unfold beautifully for you because you're taking care of the present moment.
Dear Thai, dear Sangha, dear teachers, we have learned over the last few years many wonderful types of practice from Thai's books, Dharma talks, and retreats. Is there a way to choose a certain practice that you apply in your daily sitting and life? For example, how does one decide when to practice with your inner child, or when to practice pebble meditation, or when to practice calm, ease, smile, release, or sitting with the Buddha's back? Thank you very much. Very practical question. Huh? It means that we are very rich and there's a buffet of dhammas. And the question is, which dhamma to choose from? The easiest answer would be choose what fits the most at the beginning. At the beginning, when we come to the Sangha, we come to a retreat, the community will offer all kinds of practice. And with an open mind, we receive and we put into practice. And at those moments that we put into practice, we gain experiences. And naturally, there will be certain dhammas, certain practices that fits very naturally to our daily life. And we can look at these practice in a very positive light, saying that this practice can establish a spiritual foundation for myself in the daily life. So what I learned in the practice is we have a physical body that we take care of by our well-being, by our nutriments, how we eat, how we exercise, how we consume. And when we come to the practice, we are given a new body. It's called the Dhamma body. And every morning in sitting meditation, we chant the morning verse, the Dhamma body has now risen, shining in every direction. So that Dhamma body is your practice body. To keep your spiritual practice alive, we have to nourish our Dhamma body daily. It is very easy in a retreat or in a practice center because the community sets up a program and everybody is flowing as a river. And we are all nourishing our Dhamma body at the same time. And if we cannot generate the practice of mindfulness ourselves easily, we can take refuge in our friends who are beside us, in front of us, behind us. And sometimes we can say we borrow their mindfulness. But when we come back home, we may be by ourselves, or just us and our partner, just us and our family. So here comes the part of mindful living, the art of mindfulness. So how do we curate the living Dhamma in our daily life? And this is a deep question for each and every one of us that we have to reflect on in order to continue this practice at home. Mindful breathing is one of the foundation of the practice in Plum Village, because mindful breathing is a practice can be used anywhere and for anyone, because it is a part of life. As long as you are alive, you are breathing. So as long as wherever you go, you have an opportunity to practice mindful breathing. So actually, there is no excuse, dear Sangha, of not practicing. So the question is, how can I put this into my daily schedule that nourishes my Dhamma body? On the individual level and at the same time on a collective level. Because one of our hope is not only Plum Village is a Sangha, but in every city there can be Sanghas that pop up to be a refuge for our lay community to come to generate the practice of mindfulness as a community. So on the personal level, after this retreat, you can do an evaluation. You can see what is the Dhamma that works for you the most at this present moment. It's important at this present moment. And the more you practice, actually your Dhamma body also evolves, and more Dhamma practice will become more natural, and your stability in the practice will also grow. For example, at the beginning, I dread sitting meditation. It was very difficult for me because I was falling asleep every session, non-stop. It was like a battle within. But there was another Dhamma that I enjoy a lot, and that was walking meditation. And walking meditation, because you are moving, you're engaging with nature, you're with the community, and my attention span can dwell with every step. So I know that walking meditation is something that I enjoy a lot. But the more I continue to practice sitting meditation, because even though I don't enjoy it 100%, but I still enjoy it 40%. And the other 60% takes time to evolve. And I did not say, oh, sitting meditation, not good for me, so I cut it off. So I still give it an opening, and I still give it a chance for it to evolve and for it to become more natural with my practice. And now I can say I enjoy sitting meditation. And at the beginning, I was very afraid of giving Dhamma talks. It's very scary to give the teachings in front of many people. But the more you do it, and the more you see the benefit of it, I started to see that as I was teaching, I was actually studying. And what I share, I always ask back, Phaphu, can you actually do that? And sometimes no. And I have to tell myself, then I have to put more effort. So every Dhamma that we practice, we always have to ask ourselves, what is it benefiting and how is it helping us grow? So actually there is no, this is right, like at the beginner level, you practice this. At the second level, you practice that, right? That is why in Plum Village, actually, the practice is very organic. Because your Dhamma body is also very organic. How you feed your Dhamma body, that is up to every individual's lifestyle. But what is clear that we have learned here is that the practice is useful everywhere. So our teacher always invite all of us whenever we go home, because walking meditation is a daily nourishment of our life here. So whenever we go somewhere, we always have to walk. So maybe we like to challenge ourselves. When we go to the airport this time, at leaving Plum Village, do we enter the airport the same way before coming here, or do we enter the airport, the airplane, with more happy steps, more freedom in the steps. And I think it is possible to enjoy the walking. So walking meditation is something that is very universal. It can be used anywhere. When you go to work, you commute, you have to walk. And maybe the ideal is to every step is mindfulness. But reality, maybe 10 steps is mindfulness. The other steps are not yet mindfulness. But we encourage ourselves and we make the practice more and more a foundation for our daily life. So this question here asked to us is once again being offered back to you. So all the Dharma that we offer is to nourish the seed of mindfulness inside of us, the seed of joy, the seed of happiness, the seed of stability. So there are times when we are put in front of a very difficult situation, either in the family, in school, in the work, and we may ask ourselves, what do I need at this moment? Do I need stability? If I need stability, I need to nourish the mountain solid inside myself. So then, if you know the practice, you will use the tool of pebble meditation, because one of the pebble represents mountain solid, and you use that as your nourishment, and you dwell with that practice to regain your stability in order to be present and be ready to embrace and take care of the difficult situation. So the Dharma we have to be creative in that way. And when we are lacking the energy, or what we call the diligence, and we're lacking the diligence in our daily life, that means we need to come back to our Sangha to regain that energy of practice. So come back to Plum Village for a retreat, or come to a local Sangha for their daily practice to use the energy of the community to re-strengthen our Dhamma body. So that is why the individual practice we can dwell a lot on the community's practice, because there is a collective strength. Yeah. Thank you very much for this question. So maybe we have one more question from our friend here. Yeah.
Dear Thai, dear gathered teachers, dear community, my question relates to practicing with an emotional block. I find it very hard to feel sad. When that formation arises for me, I get a tightness in my chest, like a fist. And usually it quickly changes either to bypassing into some distraction or becoming something else like anger. So an example of this recently was on the 4th day of this retreat. It was my 30th birthday. But also I received news that my grandfather died. And last night, a very caring Sangha sister asked me if I'd had the opportunity to feel the sadness for my grandfather yet. luckily a bell rang and I could run into the bathroom. But I really felt such fear at this question and a real tightness in my fists, which feels quite violent. And so the question that would benefit me is how to navigate between intentionally looking deeply into the source and nature of this block and giving myself the space and patience and freedom to trust and let go and let things change in time. Because when I feel the determination to look deeply, it quickly becomes a craving transformation that brings up other suffering. But sometimes when I'm letting myself let go, I feel like I'm missing an opportunity to meet something.
My mother died suddenly and unexpectedly. She went in for a heart operation, which had a good chance of success. But she was one of the percentage that didn't survive. And I was aware that there were lots of different emotions tied up in that. And I wasn't ever quite sure what was what, the sadness or the grief or fear or other things. And what worked for me was a lot of mindful walking by myself. I think the brother talked about the energy of mindful walking, and it felt like there was a lot of energy around all these feelings, these difficult feelings. And walking in a way helped me to cradle those feelings. So those of us that may have held babies that are in pain, we know that if we walk, that can help calm the baby down. And sometimes the more in pain the baby is, the faster we walk and jiggle it up and down. And in a way, that's how I feel in my practice, when there's a lot of energy, a lot of difficult energy, that walking, to just cherish that pain, maybe not even try and understand and verbalize the pain, not try to attach labels, but just really with the feeling. And to just walk with mindfulness as well as the feeling. And to let those feelings really be there for however long they need to be there. But always with the mindfulness to cherish those feelings. Because they've, in my experience, really making time for those feelings has been so precious. Because although it's not easy, it's that those feelings are impermanent as well. And that's what I've found. To take them for a walk, to cherish them, to comfort them, but to let them be there. And somehow not to need to put different labels on despair, sadness, whatever. And so in my practice, what I would do is go for long walks, and often my face would just be wet with tears, and sometimes I didn't even know what I was crying for. And then somehow I would come back to being able to feel and be totally present with the nature that was around me. But it wasn't just a one-off thing. It took me many, many long walks to really be able to see that my mother was in the small flowers along the path and in me, and to really be able to have transformed some of those feelings by just letting them have some space and breathing with them and comforting them on the path. And a few years later, a very good friend of mine died of cancer, and I did the same thing. And at one point, I just got this really strong insight that the other side of my sadness was joy. Because my friend had been so dear to me that was why I was feeling so sad. If my friend hadn't been dear to me, if we hadn't loved and laughed and had happy times together, I wouldn't be feeling that sad. And that was a very precious insight, that joy is the other side of sadness. So we don't really need to be afraid so much of some of these difficult feelings, because we have a practice, and we can have faith in our practice to help us transform them into peace, into joy, into seeing that inside that sadness. And I know sometimes it can be scary to do these things and walk that path. And maybe, I know I say for me, I did it myself. Well, I didn't really do it myself because all my ancestors were there, and as we learned from Sister Gina. But I've found that good, strong spiritual friends along the path are really helpful, as well as your Sangha. And sometimes we might want to do something alone, and sometimes it helps to have a spiritual friend, a Sangha, with us, so they know what we're doing and we can share, and that can help us to articulate where we are and understand it. I hope that's some help.
So, dear friends, I'd like to add a little bit about your question. I feel related to also your question. Strong emotions, and it become a plug in your heart, and you have to work with it. And as everyone else, I also have strong emotion. But what helps me was I like to see it with a friendly attitude. It could be an object. This is a thing that I identify. This is causing suffering. And I give myself a lot of space around that thing, if whatever we identify that things is. So first, usually there's a lot of reaction around that problem. We can see many different kinds of reactions. Maybe anger or tears. When I have sit in meditation, there's a lot of tears coming down. And that's a zone of energy. And sometimes the energy is very strong, and sit in meditation cannot help, because sit in meditation is a different kind of energy, and this is very soothing, very silent. So accept whatever that knocks is, and seeing that this is a friend. So we don't want to get rid of a friend as long as the friend is there. So just like we are taking our friend's hands for a walk-in meditation or go out to have some fun with. So that a friendly attitude is very helpful for me to not to trying to conquer or to win the problem or to get over the problems. And the things is the gap between when you are in touch with with the problems, it is also we in contact with the things inside of our consciousness. Maybe it's already happened in the past, that because of causes and conditions outside that creating whatever we feel inside and be identified as strong emotion. And sometimes it's already become a big seed in our consciousness, and whenever it arises, it will manifest, and we need to deal with it. And first of all, this is not a problem if we have a friendly attitude toward it, and then give it a lot of space between reaction, contact, and what happens next is contact, and if we give it attention, and we see the quality of our attention. What is your attitude toward that attention, that object? Because usually we have the 5 universal mental formation. It starts with contact, and then attention, and give rise to feelings, perceptions, and intentional volition, intentional action. So if we are not taking care of that, immediately it will become something like ill feelings, or we want to deny, we want to get rid. So these are the feelings that may arise when we in contact with the objects which is in our consciousness. So give us a lot of space. So the space here, so by means of mindfulness breathing, silence meditation, or if you can sit with a friend who has a lot of mindfulness, who has a lot of compassion, who can benefit your energy. So it can be either we channel the strong emotion with the same kind of dynamic energy by walking, running, doing something when this mental formation is manifesting. So that is very strong energy, and we channel that into a different energy, which is more healthy, like saying that you can go jogging meditation or walking, or if sitting meditation cannot help. And the other things, just specify that between get in contact with that initially, and then before it gives rise to your feelings, give us a lot of mindfulness bath toward the objects of your you want to be clear, you want to be clarified. So before it's getting to feelings, to perceptions, to things that you want to stand up and do things to react. Maybe it could be to yourself, or it could be to the other person. So just give us a lot of space, and that space could be applied, could be the practice of mindfulness, and you can name it. The practice of mindfulness has many forms, and it will be different from different people. And it will help. It will help because, as a friend, and as offer a lot of space around our friends, it will become something that's very dear to us. And this is not something that we want to get rid of, or we want to empower, or we want to diminish. Because of that, so I accept them as long as this friend is around. It could be in my mind consciousness, or it could be in my store consciousness. It will be always there as form of little tiny seed or big seed, but it will always be there as long as we can offer it a lot of peace or compassion or love or space around that energy, and then you will feel better. So you don't need to have the thought of, okay, I need to diminish this and it will be gone forever, so that I have peace, so that we're always together with you and in you, and it will channel into a different, healthier energy, and you will find yourself to have a lot of peace with that friend. So I hope that helps too. Thank you.
So dear respected Thai, dear community, thank you very much, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear all of our friends who asked the questions. So now we would like to end our session of Q&A. And today we will have an opportunity to practice walking meditation together to Shengha Temple, to Shengha residence, to enjoy a picnic lunch in the field of Shengha. So please enjoy our last few days of retreat. I can't believe 3 weeks already is coming to an end. It feels like we just were welcoming all of you yesterday. And already it is almost time, but present moment, wonderful moment. We are still here. We are in the embrace of the community. So let us enjoy our day of mindfulness together. Thank you very much.